Growing up adopted is like constantly hearing a question no one is asking: why wasn't I enough? My adoptive parents, Jennifer and Mike, were good people. They raised me with love and support, gave me everything a kid could ask for except answers. All I knew was that I'd been found as a newborn outside a church in Cincinnati, no ID, no note, just a baby in a blue blanket. I used to fantasize about the reasons. Maybe my parents died in an accident. Maybe they were teenagers forced apart. Maybe they were lost somewhere out there, waiting for the right time to find me again. Turns out, the truth doesn't usually come wrapped in fantasy. It all began with a commercial DNA test. I'd taken it as a joke. Honestly. One of those 23andMe deals my team had done at our office retreat. We were all laughing over ethnic percentages and potential Viking ancestors. 3 months later, I got an email while working from home on a Sunday morning. You have a close family match. Potential parent, Barbara Lane. Match confidence, 99.9%. My coffee nearly slipped from my hand. I clicked the link again, heart pounding, jaw clenched. Barbara Lane. My biological mother? I Googled her. Not obsessively, methodically. Middle-aged, lived in Dayton, Ohio. Married. 2 grown kids. Retired from an administrative job at a local high school. Her Facebook page was public. Lots of sunset pictures, potluck dinners. Family barbecues. My throat tightened. She had a life. I sat on my apartment floor for a long time, staring at her photo. She had hazel eyes like mine. A similar nose. There it was, genetic proof. A woman who once held me, maybe, or maybe didn't. Who knew? She was smiling in every picture. Like she'd never lost a damn thing. But something inside me whispered, send the message. So I did. Hi, Barbara. I recently received a notification from a DNA service showing you as a potential biological parent. I don't mean to disrupt your life, but if you're open to a conversation, I'd like to know more. Alex, she replied within an hour. Oh my God. I hoped this day would come. Please call me. Anytime. She added her number. I stared at my phone for another 10 minutes before I hit dial. Alex, she breathed when she picked up. I can't believe it's really you. She started crying almost immediately, and I didn't know what to say. My emotions were swirling between rage, confusion, hope, and skepticism. We talked for 2 hours that night. She told me she was 18 when she had me. That she was scared. That her parents had threatened to kick her out if she didn't fix her mistake. She said Mark, the man she later married, was her boyfriend at the time but wasn't ready to be a father. I didn't want to lose you, she whispered. But we were just kids. Poor and terrified. It sounded believable. Heartbreaking, even. I listened. I asked questions. I didn't cry yet. But something in me softened. Maybe I was wanted. Maybe I was remembered. 2 weeks later, I drove from Los Angeles to Dayton. I could have flown, but I needed the long road trip to think. What do you wear to meet the people who left you? I settled on a navy blouse, jeans, and the necklace my adoptive mom gave me when I got my first promotion. I told myself not to expect anything. I told myself I wasn't there for closure. But I lied. When I pulled up to their house, a modest 2-story home on a quiet street, Barbara was already standing outside on the porch. She didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around me. I missed you every day, she murmured. Mark came out too. Older, tall, gruff-looking. He gave me a long look, then hugged me as well. They'd made dinner. Chicken pot pie and mashed potatoes. The dining table had 4 place settings. They poured me sweet tea and sat across from me like I was a guest at Thanksgiving. We used to wonder what you'd look like, Barbara said. You've done well for yourself. Mark added. Real well. They were warm, overly so. There was a certain intensity to Barbara's touch, like she was trying to make up for time she hadn't actually spent missing me. Still, I wanted to believe. We spent hours talking. They told me about their lives. Their other children. Their dog. Their health issues. At some point, I caught Barbara watching me with tears in her eyes. You grew up so beautiful, she said softly. Smart. Successful. We're so proud. They never said the word sorry. But maybe I didn't need them to. Not yet. They introduced me to neighbors the next day, boasting like proud parents. This is Alex. Our daughter we've reconnected with. One woman even said, You must feel complete now. I smiled and nodded. I didn't say I'd been complete for years on my own. Then came the first red flag. 2 days in, while we were watching TV, Mark casually said, We've been thinking. Maybe one day you could help us visit California. We've never seen the ocean. Barbara chuckled, Oh stop, don't put her on the spot like that. But the seed had been planted. At that moment, I felt something shift inside me. Was I their daughter? Or their lottery ticket? I wasn't sure yet. But I was about to find out. Back in LA, things moved fast. My life was filled with back-to-back meetings, leadership summits, and virtual consulting calls. I had a condo overlooking the city and a garage with 2 cars I barely drove. To everyone around me, I was that storybook success, the girl who rose from nothing. But now, for the first time in my adult life, I had roots. Parents. A real family. Barbara and Mark started calling almost every other day. Sometimes just to chat, but most times, there was an undercurrent, something they wanted to say but weren't sure how. Then one afternoon, while on a Zoom call, I got a message from Barbara, Hey honey. Do you have time for a quick call? It's nothing urgent. Just need advice. I dialed back once the meeting ended. Mark's truck had broken down. Transmission failure. The repairs would cost more than the truck was worth. We've been managing with 1 car, but now that's acting up too, Barbara said with a heavy sigh. I hate asking this. You've already done so much. Don't worry, I said automatically. I'll transfer some money. Just send me the invoice. They were hesitant for show, but I could tell they expected it. That became the new pattern. Barbara called 2 weeks later in tears. Her insurance only covered part of her mammogram procedure. The rest was out of pocket. It's embarrassing, she whispered, but Mark's pension barely covers our essentials. I wired $3,000 the same day. Then came their house, the roof was leaking. Then the furnace broke. Then there was something wrong with the plumbing. In 3 months, I'd spent over $40,000 on them. It wasn't that I couldn't afford it. I was earning 10 times that in quarterly bonuses alone. But what began as warm reunification started to feel like slow-motion emotional extortion. What stung the most was how quickly they became comfortable asking. At first, they apologized. By the 5th request, they were talking like it was expected. They'd say things like, You're so successful, honey. You don't even notice a few thousand missing, I'm sure. It's just until things stabilize. We'll figure out a way to pay you back. They never did. Meanwhile, on Facebook, Barbara had started posting about me like I was her trophy. Our amazing daughter Alex just surprised us with a new HVAC system. We're so lucky. The comments poured in. Old neighbors. Church friends. All calling them blessed. Barbara was basking in it. But there was no mention of why I was adopted. No mention of remorse. No insight into why they'd abandoned me in the first place. Just photo ops, emotional manipulation, and endless requests for more. I told myself to let it go. That this was what reconnecting meant, give and take. But the scales were starting to tip hard in one direction. It was a Wednesday night when I finally broke. I had just come home from a strategy meeting. I was still in my heels, scarf half on, coat draped over one arm. My phone buzzed. Another text from Barbara: "Do you think you could help us with Melissa's tuition? Just the gap after the grant she wants to transfer to a better school." Melissa. They had mentioned her briefly. My younger sister. She was studying sociology at a local college in Ohio and had recently come out as trans. From what I'd gathered, Barbara had a hard time adjusting at first but eventually embraced her. I didn't mind helping Melissa. But something about the tone of the request, it felt like they weren't asking anymore. They were cashing checks they assumed were always available. So that night, I did something I hadn't done yet. I looked into my own story. I had a friend in legal services who owed me a favor. I sent him a casual text. "Can you pull any juvenile or adoption-related records for Barbara and Mark Lane in the late 90s? I'm trying to trace something personal." He called me within 24 hours. "Hey Alex. You sure you want this?" That's never a good way to start a conversation. He sent me scanned court records, medical forms, a report from the Department of Child Services. Turns out, I hadn't been given up through an agency. I had been abandoned. Left on the concrete steps of St. Luke's Church in Cincinnati on a February night. Wrapped in a blue fleece blanket with a broken zipper and no note. Whoever dropped me there never looked back. My heart plummeted. I flipped through the scans with shaking hands. It was all their timeline, weather report, police file, witness statements. And then the kicker. Barbara and Mark had another child 2 years later. And they kept her. Melissa had been born in 2002, years after I was left at that church. The only difference? I was born female. Melissa at the time had been assigned male at birth. My parents didn't lose me because they were poor. They didn't give me up out of love. They abandoned me because I wasn't the right gender. They had told everyone Melissa was their first and only child. Until I hit it big. And then, suddenly, they found me. I wanted to scream. I stared at their happy Facebook posts. Their family barbecues. My face next to theirs like a prize they'd won. And I realized I'd been their stupid ATM long enough. That's when I stopped crying. And started planning. The next morning, I called Barbara. I didn't let on that I knew anything. She answered in that chirpy, syrupy voice of hers. "Hi, sweetheart. Did you get my message about Melissa's tuition?" I sat on my balcony, watching the Los Angeles skyline shimmer in the sunlight. It felt almost surreal, like I was standing outside myself, watching this moment unfold. "Yeah," I said slowly. "I've been thinking about it. Oh, honey, we'd be so grateful. Melissa's really trying hard. She wants to go into advocacy work for LGBTQ youth. She's had such a hard time. Did you and Mark ever think about what it was like for me?" I asked. You know, being left on church steps. As a baby. Silence. "What do you mean?" She stammered. "Because I found the reports." "I know. About how you didn't go to an agency. About how I wasn't lost. I was left." Another pause. She whispered, "Alex. We were young. We thought." "You thought what?" My voice didn't rise. It was cold. Controlled. That I was disposable? Because I was just a girl? "No," she said quickly. "We were scared Mark's father was. He had these ideas. He wanted a boy. We thought if we could just wait and..." "So you waited, and then you had Melissa. And kept her. But when I became someone successful, that's when you remembered you had another daughter?" "Alex, please," she choked out. You have to understand how hard it was. Oh, I understand perfectly. I ended the call without another word. And then I cried. Not because I was sad anymore. Because that pain was gone. Burnt to ash. What replaced it was colder. Stronger. Purpose. They didn't just abandon me. They watched me grow from afar, never reached out, never tried to fix it until they saw a $sign next to my name. I was never their daughter. I was their investment opportunity. But now? Now I was going to make them wish they'd never found me at all. I waited a week before replying to any more messages. When I finally did, I responded like nothing had changed. Hey, sorry for the delay. Things have been crazy. I've been thinking how about I do something big for you guys. Barbara's reply came instantly. OMG, really? Like what? A house. Your own home. No more leaky roofs or broken furnaces. And a car, too. Clean slate. Let me help you start over properly. She lost her mind. Sent crying emojis. Texted me paragraphs about how grateful they were. She even called me an angel sent back to them. I told her I'd wire the down payment and take care of all paperwork. But there was a catch. The house would be in Melissa's name. I think she deserves the head start, I said sweetly. Besides, she's the one going to school, right? Barbara hesitated, but not for long. Of course. That's totally fair. Over the next 2 months, I pulled every string I had. Bought a modest 3-bedroom ranch-style home in Dayton. A Toyota Camry. Paid the closing costs, taxes, and registration. Wired funds through a shell trust, so it looked like a non-profit donation. I even flew out to deliver the car and keys myself. Barbara threw a little party to celebrate. They invited all the neighbors, their pastor, even Melissa's classmates. There were banners saying "Welcome home, Lane family." I stood there in the backyard, surrounded by plastic folding chairs and cold coleslaw, letting them soak up the attention. Barbara stood in front of everyone and raised a toast. We are so lucky, she said, glass in hand. God gave us a second chance at family. But more than anything, we're proud of our daughter, Melissa. She's the future of this family. She's everything to us. Not a single word about me. I stood there, still smiling. Because the real fun was just beginning. The housewarming party ended with hugs and leftovers packed into Tupperware. Barbara was buzzing from the praise. Mark had a fresh beer in hand. Melissa was showing her new room to some college friends. No one paid attention to me slipping away. I had already signed the documents. See, the house was never theirs. It was under a trust. The trust was under a holding company. The holding company had my name in tiny print buried in the paperwork. The only part Melissa owned was a temporary transfer title symbolic for a scholarship narrative I was building for the press. The car? Registered to my company. Every wire transfer I'd made was traceable to business entities I owned. Nothing was gifted personally. They had no idea. So that night, back at my hotel, I filed the paperwork. Revoked power of attorney. Notified the bank the title deed had been fraudulently misunderstood. Froze the trust. I canceled the utilities. I hired a lawyer in Dayton to serve a 30-day eviction notice from my property. I called the dealership and asked for the car to be picked up for contractual breach. They thought they played me? I rewrote the rules. And as a finishing touch, I drafted one final letter and scheduled it to be delivered the next morning via courier. The call came at 8:46 a.m. Ohio time. Barbara. Screaming. Crying. Hysterical. What the hell is going on? Why is there a notice on the door? Why are we being kicked out of our house? It's not your house, Barbara, I said, casually sipping espresso from my kitchen in LA. It never was. You lied to us. You used us. I let out a small laugh. Used you? That's rich. You abandoned me. Threw me away because I was a girl. And then what? Came back when the girl turned into a goldmine? She fell silent. I didn't do this out of spite. I did this to remind you, daughters are not disposable. And we're not ATMs either. Mark got on the phone next. You think you can ruin us? He barked. You'll regret this. Everyone around here knows you knows me? I cut in. Actually, they're about to know everything. About how you left a newborn on concrete. About how you only reached out when you realized she was a success story. I'd sent that information to the local press already. With documents, photos, records. Clean. Legal. Truthful. The headline would read, "Businesswoman reclaims identity and unmasks her past." They'd be local pariahs before lunch. Melissa messaged me privately. Unlike her parents, she didn't scream. She just sent one line, "I didn't know." "I'm sorry." I replied, "You weren't the mistake. You were the excuse. You deserved better too." She never responded. By week's end, Barbara and Mark were out on their own. No house. No car. No donations. And definitely no daughter to parade. I didn't do it for vengeance. I did it because they needed to feel what it meant to be discarded. Just like I was. But here's the difference, they were left with nothing. And I walked away with everything: self-respect, clarity, and peace. Blood may carry DNA. But family? That's earned. And they never earned me.